Hello and welcome to the shop. My name's Joaquin Watai and this is Watai Wood Turning. And I got a couple things to talk about real quick before we get into today's video. First of all, if you can manage it, I really highly recommend some ANSI rated safety glasses, especially if you're a prescription glasses wearer. If you can do it, get some prescription safety glasses for your shop. That way your day-to-day glasses don't end up getting marred or ruined while you're out here. And you have the extra protection, aside from your face shield, of safety glasses as well. I really highly recommend you do so. Today we're going to explore the cup chuck yet again, but we're going to explore a different cup chuck. So this is my original. This is the 1.5 inch cup chuck from Best Wood Tools, and it's great. There's nothing wrong with this chuck. I love it. But in discussion with Vic from Best Woods, we were talking about size, and one of the things that I find the cup chuck to be most useful for is scoops, ball scoops or sphere scoops. Little scoops are great for the kitchen. They're great gifts. They're a lot of fun to turn, but a 1.5 inch scoop has kind of a bit of a size limitation. And although you make nice scoops with them, they're small. And in discussion, we decided that 2 inches would probably be more ideal, especially for the coffee scoop application. And then I said, but you know what would be great is if there was a place to put the handle for hollowing. So this is what Vic at Best Wood Tools came up with. This is the 2 inch cup chuck with the scoop cutout, or as I will call it, the scoop chuck. So we're going to put this thing through its paces. One of the things that we discussed when I shot the videos with the original cup chuck, with the 1.5 inch cup chuck, was the fact that taking the chuck off and putting the live center on and swapping back and forth really slowed the process down. So Vic came up with the extended Texas drive spur. This one is a kind of an intermediate model. He is going to remove a little bit of length from it. It's not necessary for it to be that big, but the nice thing about it is it fits right through the center of the cup chuck into the Morse taper, so that we can start between centers without having to unscrew the cup chuck and replace the cup chuck over and over. Just helps to save on time, make things move a little bit quicker. We're going to find centers here on a little piece of ambrosia maple. Right now I've got it about 2.5 by 2.5, roughly, very roughly. This is not a very clean sawn piece. It's chunk out of a log. This end's wider, so we'll probably end up making this the sphere, the ball end of the scoop. We do have some cracks and things, but I think those are all going to turn away. This is very dry, so those will all probably turn away. So we will just get a reasonable estimate of center here and get this mounted up and start by rounding it off. All right, we're almost down to 2 inches. We are at round down here. We still have some flat spots up here. Got a lot of grain and character going on in here. A little bit of that I think is going to turn away. I'm going to switch to a bowl gouge just because I've got some real big grain features there, and it's tearing the grain. So we're going to try to clean that grain up a little bit. And again, we're getting down to 2 inches. We still have a wee bit of room to grow. If you saw that, but a nice, yeah, there's a crack right here. That is going to be below the 2-inch diameter. I don't think that's going to have an effect on our final piece. And we want to get it a little bit less than 2 inches so that we have some compression as we drive down in there. So we have a tiny bit more to go. And yeah, that is less than, that's outside of the 2-inch diameter. So not going to be an issue. And on second thought, I'm thinking this might not be maple. This might be manzanita from California, from the high desert. Okay, so we're below 2 inches, which means it's going to fit in there. Now there's a very slight taper from the top to the bottom, with the bottom being narrower than the top, and that's going to help compress the wood as we drive it down into our cup chuck, and that helps with a better hold. It's very cold in this shop. You might be seeing steam. It's not smoke, it's steam coming off the tools. This is dry wood, but the temperatures are very low, and there is heat involved when you turn, and that is causing steam. So, extended drive center. The newer models won't be quite as long as that, but you see the use. It fits inside the Morse taper, inside the cup chuck. Gives you a really nice, I don't know, we're almost dead on. We're a little high right there. Okay, we'll bring the tail extender up. That extended live center, though, gives you a really nice way to start and make sure, ooh, we are just about perfectly lined up. And come over a smidge, and we're lined back up on center. We've got a good solid jam here. Sorry, I keep bumping the phone, the camera. We got a good solid jam here. We can finish rounding this out, and then we can start looking at shaping our scoop. I'm pretty sure that's manzanita. Yeah, that's manzanita, not maple. Beautiful, beautiful wood, good grain. You see that little remains of that crack? We're going to turn that down. Let's look at what our diameter is here, and we're going to talk about length. That's a challenge for me on this lathe because this is a 12-inch swing. This is the Laguna 1216. So my handle from my scoop from center of the sphere to the end of the handle can only be 6 inches long. So we are at 2¼ inches in diameter right now. We're going to take that down to 2, or just over 2, so that we can work it and make sure that it's going to fit into the chuck. Raise that tool rest just a hair. Again, we've got this crack here, this split. That's going to be right at the edge of our ball. we're at 6 inches right here. We want it a little bit shorter than 6 inches. 4-inch handle, a 2-inch sphere is going to be 6 inches total, but from the center is going to be 5 inches. So we're right in the right size range right here. We're going to be okay. We'll lose about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch on the end when we take that handle down. I like it. I think we're going to be fine. Let's take a look. All right, we've got that. Most of that crack is out of there. We have some torn grain because we have some grain direction because of this knot right here, but I think that's going to be a neat feature on the actual scoop part of our scoop. I'm kind of liking where this is going. We're going to leave it a little bit bigger than 2 inches. Yeah, we're just a hair over 2 inches. While we begin to shape it, and then we'll worry about getting that down to the 2-inch diameter when we start cutting the ball section. So we're really worried right now about our handle. Okay, we're at rough dimensions here. One thing to note is the cutout for the handle in the scoop chuck is 1/2 an inch wide. So where the handle meets the ball or the sphere needs to be 1/2 an inch, or it can be smaller, but I guess if you wanted it to be a little bit wider, like if it was this dimension here, it would start to come in here and get you a little bit. But the neat thing about this is it allows you to lay the handle exactly 90 degrees out so that you have a flat scoop if you want. You can also angle it this way a little bit so the cup of your scoop comes up a little, or so that the cup of your scoop drops a little. You can actually tip the handle down so that it's coming back this way. So we have options. We have a lot of things we can do here. You don't just have to make scoops with this chuck. This is a 2-inch cup chuck that allows you to make scoops. Pretty handy. Let's finish shaping our handle and start working on our ball. So again, this point right here needs to be 1/2 an inch or smaller. We will just check that. This is really strikingly beautiful piece of wood. I'm going to get right up here against here, and we are at 5/8. Sorry, we are at 9/16. So we've got to come down just a hair. So now we can start working on our sphere. And again, we're a little bit outside of 2 inches in diameter, just a skosh, really not a whole lot. Let's there's a whole lot of different methods of how to cut a sphere. I'm not going to tell you one is better than the other. I'm just going to tell you there are different methods. We're going to go ahead and make a 2-inch sphere. If we end up a tiny bit outside of 2 inches, that's okay. We're going to use this edge as our closest diameter. We'll use that. And we'll make a halfway mark. So we're going to just kind of, you do the 45-degree progression for a sphere, understanding that on our drive end here, we need to be cautious about how far we take that before we're unable to turn anymore. One thing I will tell you is you have the option of turning your handle and the end of your handle thin enough that you can actually put it down into the Morse taper, in which case you can fully finish your sphere on the drive end simply by just tucking that down into the Morse taper so that you can come to that cleanly. It's a possibility. It's something you can do. I personally like a little bit of a flare on the end of the handle. That's not going to fit down into the taper. I'm okay with that. And again, I'm not going to tell you one method is better than another to make a sphere. This is the method we're going to play with today. But there are multiple methods, including just eyeballing it, which is valid. And usually I eyeball. I'm going to do the 45, 45, 40, 45, 45, progressive, just for the sake of the fact that we're filming. At this point, before I get this end too far down, we're going to sand all of this because this is going to be thinner and start to have a little more wobble in it because there's just less support here. So we're going to sand all of this. We'll take that down just a tiny bit more. We'll part that off and then we'll sand it. And again, there's a slight taper in here. So at the mouth, it's 2 inches. It's a little bit less than 2 inches deeper in. And we are right at 2 inches, which means this should jam just a hair proud. Again, with the handle coming straight out, we want to make sure that we have a 1/2 inch or less. We're a tiny bit outside of a 1/2 inch, so we'll just take that down just a skosh. Not here to teach you how to turn a sphere. One thing I do want to warn you about is the difference between this 2-inch scoop chuck and the 1.5 inch cup chuck. If you're turning, and this is especially great for beginners, if you're turning and you hit this, it's clean, smooth, it is very, very steady. And if you bump your tool into it, you're not gonna get hurt. You're not gonna hurt your fingers. You're not gonna catch on anything because it's a nice, smooth surface. This is not quite the case. You still have a good, clean surface, but you have that cutout here. that can catch you, that can catch your tool. So you need to be aware that you don't want to bump your tool into this surface, just like a normal chuck. You don't want to catch that. That would not be pleasant. So be cautious. Just know that it's there. We're just about where we want to be. We're going to go ahead and part this real quick. All right, we sanded at our first grit here, which was 180, and it's moving pretty stable. So I want to take this around a little bit further, just so that we have more of a true sphere, because this is too wide for me to jam it down through the Morse taper to make sure that that's spherical. So we got to do as much as we can with the tools. So we're going to take it down just a little bit more. That's good cut. Again, remembering that I don't want to bump into the chuck. So I need to make sure I clear enough room for my tool to have a place to go. My tool rest is just a little bit high. Bring that down a little bit. Just close in as we can. And we still have got an inch there. I'm going to take that down a tiny bit more. As far as spherical shape, we're doing really well. We have a slight egginess right down here. That kind of cleaned that up. So we'll go back to sanding and just get this all nice and even. Again, we're going to have to do a little hand sanding on the end of our ball, but we're getting a lot closer. Really pretty wood, nice figure. And we are very close to being perfectly spherical. It's really close. I only sanded this up to 320 and then burnished it because this is going to be finished with pure tung oil. We want a food safe finish, polymerizing finish, something that's going to make it water resistant and again food safe, and don't want to put any other substances on there. I think pure tung oil is going to be perfectly fine. Now we've got to part this off. We're going to work at it a little bit with the 3/8 spindle gouge. Again, being very cautious. You saw me slip back there. Got to be careful. I don't want to catch the tip of the tool in the slot in the cup. Oh, that was my bad. And honestly, the best tool to use at this point in time is the skew chisel. We use the heel of our skew. Pay close attention, make sure we've got a good curve. And we're going to finish out our sphere. You hear my Mastiff Munchie in the background. She's got a lot to say today. All right, we're just about ready. Come around. A slight bevel here. There we go. So that was a good jam. We had a good solid hold in there. Always nice to see. Certainly didn't have a problem maneuvering our sphere. And we are below the surface, so we're just outside of 2 inches in diameter, which means we will get minimal compression. Let's find that crack. There it is. See if we can line that up. All right, and we are a tiny bit oblong shape. Again, because we're going to jam this, I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem. And we're going to go for a 90-degree scoop. And that should be all it takes. Actually, I think we're going to tilt our scoop a little bit. So pop it out, tilt it. Again, I want to try to get beneath, and here's where that nice half-inch deep cutout comes in handy. I want to try to get that crack out of there. So because it's clear here, we can actually hollow right down to the just above the ring, and we'll be able to turn that crack away entirely. That's a pretty solid jam. Now I'm going to caution you when you're hollowing here, take your time at first, figure out how much pressure it will accept. These will like to jump out. Again, it is a jam fit, it's a friction fit, and it can jump out. So take your time, your first couple cuts, kind of feel it out, feel where it's going to work best. Got a fresh edge. See what we can do. This one's active. I think that'll do it. And part of the issue is I do have a slight egg shape. One thing to remember is this is a 2-inch sphere. We've cut almost half of it away, which means that we don't want to go more than 7/8 deep. We're only a 1/2 inch, so we've got plenty of room to get deeper. But you want to kind of use some spatial awareness. Consider the shape of the inside of a ball, because that's what you're trying to turn. Not being able to pop it out, put it back in, pop it out, and put it back in. So be very conscientious of that. I might have been better off to drill a depth hole before I started getting down into the hollow of the bowl. But we'll work it out. Okay, before I get the nub down in the bottom, I want to kind of feel here. Nope, I'm still real shallow. Let's get that nub out and we'll make a quick measurement again. That's pretty shallow. And it did jump a little. Be aware of that. Okay, we're at 3/4 of an inch. We're about where we need to be. As we're removing bulk, we're losing the solidity of our jam a little. We got to be real careful here. I'm going to switch to a scraper and get the inside of that rounded. I think that will be the safest solution because it is wanting to rock a little bit on us. We'll come in with a 1-inch traditional scraper. It's got a fresh burr on it. That's too big. Go 3/4 inch asymmetric negative rake. I shaped that myself. Raise the tool rest a little so we're kind of aiming downhill a bit. Not sure if the light is washing the bottom or not, but you got a little bit of a nubbin, little nubbity nub down there, as my friend Steve Twaddell likes to call it. We come up from below that, raise the scraper. That seems pretty good. I still feel like we could remove a little bit of material right in here, right in the shoulder. It feels a little less than spherical right in the shoulder, but I don't think we want to go much deeper. Let's bring in the vernier caliper using the tail. Put that down in the center. Take a look. We're at, so again, that's a 2-inch sphere. We're just over 3/4 of an inch, so we do have room down there in the bottom. So we're going to work through that. We'll keep using the scraper just because it's going to present more pressure straight in rather than laterally, and that's going to help kind of reinforce the fact that that's a jam. Feels spherical from the end of the handle. Let's take a look here again at the depth. All right, we can go deeper. I think I want to take it to at least 7/8. So I've got 1/8 of an inch of depth
So I'm much closer to spherical, I'm much rounder, but I still need to get deeper. That felt pretty nice. We still have a wee bit of depth to go. We're going to freshen the burr on this. Be right back. And you might be saying, wait a minute, that's a negative rake scraper. Why does it have a burr on it? It does have a burr on it, but what the negative rake does is give that burr a bit of an angle. Rather than me raising the tool rest real high and having to come down like this, I can come in at a flatter angle, but still have that burr approach at that higher angle because of the negative rake. Hope that makes sense. We're getting nice wispy little shavings. That's why the burr, it's clean. I get a tiny touch of torn grain right there. Let's see how close we are. Much closer. We're going to take a super light pass or two. Let's see if we can get that little tiny bit of tear out cleaned up. Again, just wispy little shavings. Something that the burr is exactly what you have. We'll clean that torn grain up. We're going to take one more super light pass. Give it that little go. Roll edge. And I do believe we have hollowed our scoop. It feels very round. I'm sure you could jig it up and have a little, some kind of a template that you could stick in there. I still can remove a tiny bit. This is that point where my little catchphrase at the end, you know, just one more pass means put the bowl gouge down. We're playing in that territory. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting there. That, I do believe, is that. We've got a very, very smart surface in there. Feels good. We are just at 7/8 of an inch of depth, which means that we've got a nice spherical, consistent wall of about an eighth of an inch thick here. We might get a little bit wide. I think we're going to have pretty consistent walls. This is the point where, unless you feel comfortable popping it out, popping it back in, popping it out, popping back in, here's where you just have to trust in your ability to feel that three-dimensional space and where it is in relation to the bottom. There's not much other way to do it. Now slow the lathe way down to sand, because again, you've got that handle poking out there. You do not want your fingers to cross this. You need to keep your fingers out here. Be very, very conscious of the fact that you've got a propeller blade winging around. Now this is a little bit silly, but this is something that I find extremely satisfying with this chuck. That little pop, I really like that. And because we were right at 2 inches throughout most of it, we didn't get it, we get a little bit of creases, a little bit of stuff you can just polish up by hand. Here where it wasn't quite round, you can see it did compress. So we can just come back with some 320 grit paper here. Oh, sorry, we'll come back with some 220 and just see if we can smooth away that lip. You could also spray it with a little bit of water, hit it with heat, and it'll expand back out. There's so many different things you could do right here. This is minor, and again, caused primarily by the fact that this wasn't perfectly spherical. It was very, very close, but there was just a little bit of egginess on the end there. Now, I will tell you that I was dead on in my assessment that I was 1/8 of an inch thick all the way through. It's beautiful. It just fits really, really nicely. Pretty happy with that. That's a nice little scoop. Just a little bit of a downturn here, which I find to be useful when I'm scooping coffee beans. That's my preference. You could do it at a true 90 degrees. Also soften this edge. And yeah, it's a pretty simple project. Once you get used to hollowing, really the most challenging thing is hollowing using the cup chuck, because again, this is a friction jam in here. And so you have to find that happy medium between really digging in and taking a cut that's going to be effective, but that is light enough that it's not going to pop it back out of the chuck. You saw it took me a couple of tries before I found where it balanced, but it did balance, and I was able to proceed all the way through hollowing without any more incidents. The sole incident being because it was a tiny bit out of round, it rocked a little, but that's not the end of the world. And honestly, you could come back with, let's say, a belt sander or a disc sander and just snub this nose off. You could do, there's so many different things you can do from this point. We're going to put some oil on this.
There you have it. Just a fun little project, an exploration using the scoop chuck, if you will, the 2-inch cup chuck from Best Wood Tools with the cutout for the scoop handle. Now, you don't have to get the cutout. I got sawdust in my beard. Isn't it wonderful working in a wood shop? You don't have to get the cutout. You can have the solid rim, just like the 1.5-inch cup chuck. But this does add a little dimension. It adds a little capability when you can drop that handle down and through, and it just gives you a little bit something different. Couple of things I really like about this is that there is a chamfer all the way around and on the scoop. So when you do jam, it has a tendency not to make too much of an impression unless you do something like I did where you have a slight egg shape. You can work around that. Again, if you keep your tail thin enough, you can feed that down through the Morse taper. If your handle is skinny enough, you can feed that down through the Morse taper and finish around your sphere before you hollow. So that is one way to get around that, is just a skinnier handle. So 2 inches is about the ideal size for a coffee scoop, in my opinion. It gives you about 15 grams of grain of beans per scoop. That's whole beans. I couldn't tell you about ground, but about 15 grams of whole beans per scoop is what I measured using the one I turned the other day. It's just a fun project. It's a quick project. It's easy. And when you're dealing with things like production where you want to have 15 or 20 scoops for a craft show, the cup chuck really makes it fast and easy to just go through the blanks, just boom, 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 boom. You're not worrying about sizing tenons. You're not worrying about where's my truck key. You just, everything's friction, and it actually can move very, very fast once you get used to how it works. This is a very old way to hold wood on a lathe. And in fact, if you watch some videos on YouTube of Japanese wood turners turning tea caddies and things like that, they do everything with a steel cup chuck with a jam. Everything is jammed, and it's really fascinating to watch. So there's a lot of uses for this. I'm just scratching the surface with it. I am just beginning to learn how to most effectively use a cup chuck. One thing that I want to say is the 1-inch cup chuck, I think, is an ideal solution for holding finial stock. A 1x1 blank, you just jam it down in there. If you're, as long as you're square, you've got a good jam in there. You've got a neat way to hold your finial. You're not finicking around with little tiny pin jaws or 1-inch jaws and messing around. I don't have the 1-inch yet. When I get it, I'll do a video strictly using the cup chuck. I think that that's another application where the cup chuck can really shine, and especially around Christmas time, you're banging out snowmen, banging out Christmas trees, banging out ornament shapes. Cup chuck where you're just jamming it, turning it, popping it out. Next one, boom, boom, boom down the line. I think that's a really effective use of it for production. Tell me what you think. Let me know. Give me your feedback. Get a hold of Bestwood Tools. Tell them what you think. Make your suggestions. I initially thought that 1/2 inch, when I got it in my hands, that 1/2 inch was too small. Nuts. I don't think so. I think proportionately speaking, that's absolutely ideal. If it was 3/4 of an inch, which is actually a little bit wider than the butt of my scoop here, I think it wouldn't be proportionate. I don't think it would look good. I think the 1/2 inch cutout is absolutely ideal for that, and gives you a good handle. And again, you can put it in at straight so that it's a little bit above. This is my preference for the way a scoop is. I'm going to make them the other ways, where it's just straight at 90 degrees and where it's cocked up a little bit. I'm going to do it both, all three, so that the customer has variety. But yeah, it's a fun tool. And again, I'm just scratching the surface of its uses. Now, a little bit of personal business. I need to let you know, I'm filming this video at the beginning of December 2025. On December 30th, I go in to have my right knee replaced. Now, I had my left knee replaced in July. That's why there was such a long hiatus in my video production. I was dealing with knee replacement and all that entails. Roughly 2 months after surgery, I should be able to get back into the shop. So we're looking at the end of February, early March. I should be back in the shop and I should be making videos. I'll try to at least drop a short or two and let you guys know how I'm progressing. If healing is anything like it was for my left knee, it should go fabulous. And since I know what I'm getting into, since I've already had one knee done, I'm not real worried about whatever's going to happen. I think everything will go just fine. I have a very, very good surgeon. The VA took extremely good care of me. And then I had almost 3 months of consistent physical therapy as I was recovering. So it was really, really a good experience all around, and it's one of the best medical decisions I've made for myself in my life. I can't wait to get the other one done. But that does mean there's going to be a pause in videos for a couple of months. It can't be helped. I am not able to stand at the lathe for lengthy periods of time for about 1.5 to 2.5 months, right in that area. I am doing some preparation, some exercise to try to build stamina before surgery so that recovery may not be as long, but I have to be realistic and take care of healing so that I can spend a lot more time in front of the camera standing at the lathe for you guys in the future. Let me know what you think about the cup chuck. If you get a cup chuck and you start making your scoops or whatever, I'd love to see pictures. I'd love to get feedback. I'd love to hear about your experience using the Bestwood Tools scoop chuck. Remember, just one more pass means put the bowl gouge down. We'll see you next time.